Okay. Good evening, students. Welcome back again. We were discussing chapter number 5. Can you hear my voice? Okay. So, before we begin with this chapter, I'll tell you a small summary, right? ઘણીવાર એવું થાય બીજા આપણે સેશન્સ ચાલતા હોય એટલે ચેપ્ટરનું કન્ટેન્ટ ભૂલી ગયા હોય. So don't worry, I'll tell you the summary of this chapter in small way, so you will recall all the chapter what we were discussing. Okay, the aligned planet. The name of the chapter is the aligned planet. This chapter is all about the planet, right? Saving the environment, saving this planet as it is a global planet which responds in its own way. That is what we were discussing in the previous video. We were focusing on the deteriorating health of the earth or the planet because of the human needs which are growing and it explodes, right? Our needs are constantly increasing, right? It explodes in different ways and disturbs the natural resources, right? As the resources are always limited in nature which are available from this planet, right? And we disturb them. The growth of the population is one of the most important factor for deforestation, right? And we have seen what deforestation is, right? આપણે જોયું છે એફોરેસ્ટેશનની જગ્યાએ ડિફોરેસ્ટેશન થાય છે. ગામડાઓમાં લોકો મૂકીને શહેરમાં લોકો જતા રહે છે, right? We are not concerned with this planet, right? We need to take care of this environment. I told you last also that at least we need green revolution. All these things we have seen, right, in the previous video. So take out your textbook. We are going to end this chapter today. That is on page number 44, right? That is the last paragraph, the last line of the previous last paragraph. That is, I am repeating it again. Mr. L.K. Jha, the first branded report raised the question, are we to live our successors a scorched planet of advancing deserts, improved landscapes and aligned environment, right? This is where we ended, right? Mr. L.K. Jha published a report in the international commissions that he was being questioned, or he published in his reports, right? Are we going to live our ancestors, that means our next generation, a scorched planet, scorched એટલે ખરબચડું planet, right? Scorched થયેલું, scratch થયેલું, right? That kind of a planet where there is nothing properly developed, or the advancing deserts, that means where there will be deserts in the future time, right? Are we going to live our ancestors, the kind of the planet where there will be nothing? It's a question mark. It's a question. We need to think all these things, right? You might have studied science. You know what environment is, right? I told you yesterday also. What effects does it have? The best example that we can see, I forgot to tell you yesterday, that the atmosphere of Delhi, right? Even to breathe, proper air is not available over there, right? It has been recently shown in the news and the TV channels, right? Again, the atmosphere of the Delhi, right, is getting worse and worse day by day. People have a lot of money in their pocket, but they do not have the good environment. If they do not have the good environment, how they are going to breathe, right? One of the worst state, and it is known as the capital of India, where people, are constantly increasing, income is constantly increasing, and the atmosphere and the environment is constantly decreasing, right? The atmospheric level where there is pure oxygen, pure ozone layer, right, where humans can breathe properly, is not there in Delhi, right? This is one example that I am sharing with you, so you will have an idea. Gujarat is far more better compared to other states in the terms of atmospheric value, right? Still it is known as the dry place. So we need to develop more afforestation concept. We need to develop green revolution that will help us saving this planet or saving this environment, right? If one person at least plant one tree, whatever the state is, whatever the particular place is, it's almost 135 crore plus of the population of India that we have currently right now, right? 135 crore plus, because I teach SS and I remember in 2012 it was 121 crores in 2012, right? So it is 2020, so the data is almost, right, 135 crore plus. So if each human at least plant one tree in their home, right, or in their surrounding areas, it would change the whole concept of our nation. But we are not concerned with all these things. We are only concerned with the profit that we have in our mind. Right? We are neither focused what the environment does or what environment has or what the environment actually requires. Right? Let's move ahead. So that is why the report that was being published in the international commissions, where Mr. L.K. Jha said that are we the ones who are going to live the scorched or the advancing deserts for our next generations? It's a question mark. Let's move ahead. Mr. Lester R. Brown, in his thoughtful book, The Global Economic Prospect, the name of the book is The Global Economic Prospect, points out that the Earth's principle, that means its own rules and regulations, right? Biological systems are four things that Earth requires as a principle. Fisheries, right? Forests, grasslands, that is greenery, and croplands, right? These are the four basic things that Earth requires. Fisheries, right? There are a lot of fish in the oceans, right? It need to be maintained, right? जो fish ની વસ્તી ગણતરી બહુ વધી જશે ઓશિયનની અંદર, right? So it would be very difficult thing to maintain itself, right? The second thing, that the basic thing is required is the forests, that is afforestation. That is again an important concept that the earth requires. Third thing, that is grassland, greenery, right? Grass, for the development of the agriculture sector or for the cattle rearing concepts, right? And the fourth one, that is croplands, crops, where land is fertile, good soil, where crops can be developed easily. These four things the earth requires to balance itself, right? The basic example that I'll give you of our city only. If you go to the Kothariya road, right? We find lot of petrol pumps, we find lot of restaurants, we find lot of schools and colleges, which was actually an crop land, right? જે જગ્યા actually ખેતી કરવાની હતી, ત્યાં હવે buildings, roads, house, petrol pumps, gas stations, right? Colleges, આ બધું બનતું જાય છે. આનાથી શું થાય ખબર છે? એની આજુબાજુની જે જગ્યા હોય ને, that is also affected. For 20-30 years back, there was nothing over there except the agricultural concept which was being developed over there. Right? Now you see on that road many schools, colleges, right? Gas stations, fuel stations, restaurants, and many more things are going to be, being developed in the upcoming future. We are the ones who are disturbing the environment. મકાનો ત્યાં બને એટલે રસ્તાય બને એટલે બધી જગ્યા કપાતી જાય. Right? એટલે જે cropland ની જે જગ્યા હોય એ imbalance થાય. એના ઉપર રોડ બની જાય, એના ઉપર હાઈવે બની જાય, and many more things. Right? I'm just sharing one small example of our own city. You can imagine the concept of the whole nation or the whole world, where people are trying to develop many things, but actually they are disturbing the environment. Right? નવા રસ્તાઓ બધા બને છે, right? નવા societies બને. What happens when there is too much of rain? Right? The water does not have the space to go anywhere, because where the water was actually flowing from there, now there are highways or roadways or constructions process which are going on. Right? એટલે પાણી બધું એક જગ્યાએ ભરાઈ જાય છે. આપણે જ એન્વાયરમેન્ટને બગાડીએ છીએ. On one side looks very well, wow, it's a building, it's a construction, it's a school, it's a college, it's a highway, right? It's a town, it's a mall, many more things. But on the other side, we are disturbing the environment. Our vichar પણ આપણે ક્યારે નથી કરતા, right? And when there's too much of rain, you can see especially in Bombay, બધાના લોકોના ઘરમાં પાણી ઘૂસી જાય અને નીકળે નહીં મગજ અંદર દિવસ. આવું શું કામ થાય? નીચાણવાળા વિસ્તાર એમને એમ થઈ જાય? No. On the other side, there are a lot of development, so they are very high. The roads are high, the construction process are very high, so automatically the other side will be the low side. And those people living in the lower areas, right? Not the lower societies, not the lower areas, right? Obviously there is going to be the rainwater that is going to enter in their house. and there are no other ways that they can come out of it. This is just small examples. That is what I am sharing with you, right? આ રીતે પણ આપણે એન્વાયરમેન્ટને પ્લેનેટને ડિસ્ટર્બ કરીએ છીએ, right? We are not concerned with all these things. આપણે ક્યારે આવું વિચાર્યું પણ નહીં હોય, આ પોઈન્ટથી આપણે વિચારતા પણ નહીં. But these are the things that we need to take care or we need to understand, right? Moving ahead. So basically these 4 things which are the most important things to save the planet, that is fisheries, forest, grasslands and cropland, to maintain the balance in the environment. And they form the foundation of the global economic system. In addition to supplying our food, these 4 systems provide virtually all the raw materials for the industries, right? આ 4 વસ્તુ જો proper maintain કરેલી હશે, right, it provides all the raw materials for the industry. Except minerals and petroleum derived synthetics. In large areas of the world, human claims on the systems and are reaching at an unsustainable level, a point where there is productivity is being impaired. When this happens, fisheries collapse, forest disappears, grasslands are converted into barren wastelands and croplands deteriorate. મેં જે તમને કીધું એ જ વસ્તુ અહીંયા છે. બહુ વધારે પડતું ડેવલપમેન્ટ થઈ જાય ને, we are the one who are disturbing the environment, right? મેં જેમાં તમને એક્ઝામ્પલ શેર કર્યું that આપણા સુરેન્દ્રનગર, this is what the reality is, this is what it actually happens, right? It is impaired, it cannot be measured. Impaired means it cannot be measured, right? I'm repeating the lines again, try to understand. In large areas of the world, that means in large areas of the world, human claims on the systems are reaching at an unsustainable level, right? Humans are so eager to develop many things at one point of time while they live on this planet. And they want to develop. And they do not want any other things. They want to make everything on this planet till they exist. But they actually doesn't know that we are disturbing the environment because they do not have the data what the environment requires, right? And indirectly they disturb the environment, right? It looks very good when you look it from your naked eye, right? આપણે આંખેથી જોઈએ ને ત્યારે બહુ સારું લાગે, સરસ લાગે. But એના after cause effect શું છે that we don't know, right? So we need to even think of the environment. Yesterday also I told you, today also I am telling you, right? Deforestation. જંગલમાં જઈને એક ઝાડ કાપી નાખવું બહુ easy વાત છે. It takes 20 to 30 minutes to cut a tree, right? With the machines and weapons that they have and the technological system, right? અડધા કલાકમાં તો આખું ગાયબ થઈ જાય. But it takes 5 to 10 years at least to plant or to grow a tree, right? એક ઝાડ કાપતા અડધો કલાક થાય પણ એ ઝાડને ડેવલપ કરતા 5 થી 10 વર્ષ થાય. This is the difference that the humans are not understanding, right? This is what it especially mentioned in the textbook. World human claims on the systems are reaching at an unsustainable level, a measure or a particular figure that cannot be measured in numbers, which is concerned with the development, right? A point where there is productivity, a point where there is something new, productivity, which is being impaired, which cannot be calculated. When this happens, જ્યારે બહુ વધારે પડતું આ પ્રોસેસ થઈ જાય, fisheries collapse, right? Fisheries sector આખું બંધ થઈ જાય, right? Forest disappears, right? Deforestation થતું જાય. Grasslands are converted into barren wastelands, right? The greenery છે એ બધી ગાયબ થઈ જાય. And croplands deteriorate. મેં જેમ તમને કીધું ને, બધું ડેવલપમેન્ટ થાય છે, બહુ સરસ દેખાય, પણ એની આજુબાજુની જે જમીન છે જે એકચ્યુઅલી ક્રોપલેન્ડ્સ છે, right? એ પણ in efficiency ઘટાડી, right? In a protein conscious and protein hungry world, right? This is a world which is concerned with proteins. Proteins manakri energy, right? Lot of energy, right? So in a protein conscious and protein hungry world, overfishing is common every day, right? વધારે પડતું overfishing થઈ જાય છે. So fish are not available in the oceans or in the rivers. In poor countries, local forests are being decimated. Decimated means destroyed, right? Poor countries છે જ્યાં કોઈ development નથી, જ્યાં કોઈ scope નથી, ખાલી forest છે, right? So that is their only source of income, right? And those local people living over there will get the income only when they are allowed to cut the trees from their area, right? They'll get certain point of income. In poor countries, local forests are being decimated in order to procure firewood for cooking. In some places, firewood has become so expensive that what goes under the pot now costs more than what goes inside it. Right? Try to understand this line. This is becoming the reality. Pot ni અંદર જે ખાવાનું જાય ને that is more cheaper than the firewood. That means સળગાવવા માટે જે લાકડું જોઈએ ને એ ખાવા કરતા પણ વધારે મોંઘું છે. This is what the reality is. Right? What goes under the pot now costs more than what goes inside it. Since the tropical forest is, in the words of what goes inside it, since the tropical forest, in the words of Dr. Meres, the powerhouse of evaluation, several species of life face extinction as a result of its own destruction. As a result of its own destruction, right? Destruction. What happened? Destructions. What happens? Right? Deforestation કરતા જ જાય. અને firewood વધારે ને વધારે expensive થતું જાય. Why? Because the wood which has been cut down from the forest is available in a very limited quantity because new trees and plants are not being developed. That is where the human makes the difference. They do not understand what the environment requires. તમે ઝાડ કાપો છો કોઈ વાંધો નહીં, પણ સામે એવા નવા ઝાડ ડેવલપમેન્ટ કરો એવું તો કોઈ સમજતું જ નથી. This is where the environment is getting disturbed, right? And face extinction. Extinction means scarcity at the extreme level, right? As a result of its destruction, right? Destroy. It's very easy to destroy everything. It takes few hours, but it takes years to develop everything. It takes years to develop everything. Let's move ahead. It has been well said that forest precedes mankind, right? Forests precedes mankind. Mankind હતું ને, that means માનવ જાતિ હતી ના પૃથ્વી ઉપર, એના પહેલા પણ forest તો હતા, right? Deserts follow. The next were the deserts. The world's Asian patrimony of tropical forest is now eroding. That means is now being destroyed at the rate of 40 to 50 million acres a year. 40 to 50 million acres a year. Forests are being destroyed or the trees are being cut down, and the growing use of dung for bearing deprives the soil of an important natural fertilizers. The World Bank estimates that a 5-fold increase in the rate of forest planting is needed to cope up with the expected fuel wood demand in the year 2000. Right? Many of the students were in standard 10. I told you that there is one chapter in standard 11 when you were in 10th, right? જો તમે સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ અત્યારે અટેન્ડ કરતા હશો તો મેં તમને 10th માં એક વસ્તુ કીધી that at least you need to plant 5 trees in your home or in your society to balance the environment, right? I told you once when we were discussing in standard 10, the same line is being repeated over here. See, I'm reading it again. The World Bank estimates that a 5-fold means 5 time increase in the rate of forest planting. Every area requires a 5-fold, that means 5 trees at least in the forest planning that is needed to cope up with the expected fuel wood demand in the year 2000. This is 2020. એટલે 2000 ની સાલની અંદરની જે requirement છે of the fuel wood, if we want to satisfy the need as per the data of the World Bank in the year 2000, we need to grow at least 5x times, that is 5 times the trees in the forest. Then only we can save the environment. This is 2020. We are 20 years ahead, right? We do not have the current data. Whatever data has been there in the textbook, we have to accept. James Speth, the president of the World Resources Institute, said the other day, we were saying that we are losing the forest at an acre a second, right? एक acre एक second में उड़ी जाए છે. That is said by James Speth. He is the president of the World Resources Institute. World ની જે resources હોય ને સારી, right? Natural resources હોય, man-made resources હોય, right? Natural resources માં ઘણી બધી વસ્તુઓ આવતી હોય. એનો જે particular president છે, that is James Smith, he said that in a report that the forest, that is we are losing the forests at an acre a second. 1 acre જગ્યાનું forest 1 સેકન્ડમાં destroy થઈ જાય છે આખા વર્લ્ડની અંદર, right? But it is much closer to acre and half to a second, right? Acre is quite okay. Acre is quite close, right? But it is even more than half an acre. એટલે 1.5 acre થી પણ વધારે, right? So it is even more than half an acre, right? That is what has been said by James Smith in the President of the World Resources. Article 48A of the Constitution of India. Now we are talking of our own nation. Article 48A of our Constitution of India provides that the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. Article 48A of our Constitution of India, right? We have made a constitution. Where was our constitution been made? In the year 1950. The date was 26th January, right? That is why we say that it is a Republic Day. So that Republic Day, when the constitution was being made under Article 48A, it clearly says that the state, that means it's the responsibility of the state, that endeavor to protect, that it becomes the responsibility to protect and improve the environment and safeguard, to take necessary steps for the forest and the wildlife of the country, for the forest and wildlife of the country. But what causes endless anguish is the fact that the laws are never respected nor enforced in India. But the reality is the laws are never respected. કેટલા લોકો નિયમ પાડે in India? Hardly few, right? Everyone is being included. હું પણ આવી જાઉં, right? But we never try to understand the law and respect the law. We think of our own self and go in our own way, right? Laws are never being respected in India. That is why, right, many of the problems occurs, right? 10 to 20% of the problems are being there in India continuously because of the laws are never respected or never being followed properly. Why the Western countries or the Western people, that is the UK and the US people, right, are much educated, are much developed, they have much more sense than our people? Because they follow the law. Majority of our constitution, right, I will say that majority of our constitution is as same as the British constitution. આપણું અને બ્રિટિશર્સનું કોન્સ્ટિટ્યુશન કહો ને તો મેજોરિટી બધું સેમ જ છે. There are very few changes which are there in the Indian constitution. But still UK, United Kingdom, that is the Britishers who were there in India, right? એમનું constitution and આપણું constitution same હોય, then why they are much more developed than us? 1 euro is equal to 80-84 rupees. 1 pound is equal to 95-97 rupees. Right? It is much more stronger even in the terms of economy than US. US dollar 73-74. Euros and a pound 80 and a 90 is much. Right? They follow the law. They understand and respect the law. They work as per the rules and regulations which are being framed in the constitution. Constitution આપણું છે, laws આપણામાં frame કરેલા છે under Article 48A, that it is clearly mentioned that it becomes the responsibility of the state to protect the environment and the wildlife resources. But the reality is we are never concerned, or we are never respected, or we are never focused, or we never give importance to the law which are being made in our constitution, right? For instance, the constitution says that casteism, untouchability and bonded labor shall be abolished, but they flourish shamelessly even after 40 years of the operation of constitution. Law માં ચોખ્ખું લખેલું છે, right? એક સિમ્પલ એક્ઝામ્પલ આપેલો છે ટેક્સ્ટ બુકની અંદર. It is clearly said casteism ના હોવું જોઈએ. ઇન્ડિયામાં casteism છે, right? હજી લોકો પોતાના કાસ્ટના ફેવર કરે છે, right? Maybe in politics, maybe in any other field, or maybe anywhere, right? They ask the name and they ask the surname What's your name? ખાલી નામ કે ને શું surname? Why surname is so important? They just want to know which caste do you belong, right? આ એક મેન્ટાલિટી થઈ ગઈ છે લોકોને, right? Law જે છે કોન્સ્ટિટ્યુશનમાં માં ચોખ્ખું લખેલું છે there should not be casteism. ઇન્ડિયામાં છે, right? People are favoring their own people rather than the justiciable people, right? Justice નથી જોતું, મારી કાસ્ટનો છે ને, I will favor him. That's it. Whether he is right or wrong, I don't know. I'm going to favor my caste. This is where the first problem comes. The second one, that is untouchability. Lower caste na locals, we should not touch them. Why? They are humans. But a mentality thing is moving ahead. And bonded labor. Bonded labor is when we have a view of certain people in our life that they are laborers, and we do not treat them as humans, we treat them as laborers only, right? Landlords are જૂના જમાના, એમની એક મેન્ટાલિટી થઈ ગઈ હોય, એમના ગામડાના જે એમની અંડરમાં હોય ને એમને લેબર્સ જ કન્સિડર કરતા હોય, એમની પાસે કોઈ બી કામ કરાવવાનું, right? Many things in India are creating problems. આપણે પ્લેનેટમાંથી થોડા out of the view આવતા રહ્યા, because there are other problems too which affects the environment, right? And these are not my words, it is clearly mentioned in the textbook. Casteism, untouchability, and bonded labor shall be abolished. આ નીકળી જવું જોઈએ, પણ હકીકતમાં આવું કંઈ થતું નથી. But they flourish seamlessly even after 40 years of operation of the constitution. The recent report of our parliament estimates committee has highlighted the near catastrophic depletion. Catastrophic means a particular event which causes great damage, and a catastrophic level, right? Depletion of India's forest over the last 4 decades. India, according to reliable data, is losing its forest at the rate of 3.7 million acres a year. Every year we are losing 3.7 million acres a year. That much amount of deforestation has been done in India. Large areas officially designated as forest lands are already virtually treeless. Now there are no trees, barren lands, khali jagya je ek time mein forest હતો. Now there are empty spaces over there, barren lands જ્યાં કઈ છે જ નહીં. That is virtually treeless. The actual loss of the forest is estimated to be 8 times the rate indicated by the government statistic. Government આંકડા કહે છે કે 3.7 million acres a year, but the reality is it is almost the actual loss, that is about 8 times. So 3.7 into 8, so that would be around 25-26 million acres a year. That is the real thing, right? Government સાચા આંકડા ક્યારે બતાવતી જ નથી. એ જે કે એનો આજુબાજુનું એઝમ્પશન કરવા, રાઈટ? અહીંયા ચોખ્ખું લખેલું છે, એટલે બીજા રિસર્ચર્સ જે હોય ને, જે રિસર્ચ કરતા હોય પોતપોતાની રીતે, and they have found it that whatever the government data that has been shown is actually into multiply by 8 times. That amount of deforestation is being done in India every year, right? 100% પહોંચતા વાર ન લાગે, right? તો આ સ્પીડે deforestation થતું હોય ને. તો moving ahead, next page. તો મેં જે કીધું ને એ જ વસ્તુ છે. Next page. A 3-year study using satellites and aerial photography conducted by United Nations, United Nations, warns that the environment has deteriorated so badly that it is critical in many of 88 countries investigated. If I'm not wrong, there are 195 or 196 countries in this world, right? And out of that 195 or 196 countries, right? I'm not clear with total how many, but they are close to 195. Maybe it's 96 or 97, I don't know, but at least check. Out of that, 88 countries which are investigated, 88 country ની અંદર હાલત ખરાબ છે. The condition is very critical, which is related to environment. which is related to environment, right? So almost you can say, right, 88, so 90 to 180, right? So almost 45, 47% of the world, right? 45 to 47% of the world, the environment is deteriorating. That doesn't mean that bakina je countries che, right, 50 to 53% that they are extremely good. Even there is deforestation in that areas also, but they are far more better compared to these 88 countries. Now, which are these 88 countries? You can search it on Google, so you'll have the idea, right? Moving ahead. There can be no doubt about the growth of world population. I have written over here, right? The growth of population is the most important factor for deforestation, right? The same point has been given in this textbook. There can be no doubt that the growth of world population is one of the strongest factors deteriorating the future of human society. It is the future of human society, right? Distorting the future, right? Population right? It took mankind more than 1 million years to reach the first billion. See, try to understand this line. It took the mankind more than 1 million years, right, to reach the first billion. To reach the first billion. करोड़ में पहुंचता पहुंचता 1 मिलियन वर्ष जता रहे 10 लाख, right? 1 करोड़ નું population अथवा 100 करोड़ નું population पार करता है, right? That was the world population around the year 1800, right? That was the population, that is the world population. Numbers નથી આપેલા, but એવું કીધેલું છે કે mankind ને 1 million year થયું, right, to reach the first billion. That is to reach in crores, right? It took lakhs of years to reach the population in crores in the year 1800. In the year 1800. But the year 1900. Now see on the next line. But the year 1900, a second billion was added. એટલે બીજા 100 વર્ષમાં second billion was added, right? એટલા લોકો 100 વર્ષની અંદર બીજા એડ થઈ ગયા. So you can imagine the amount of population which was there between 1800 to 1900. કેટલી વસ્તી ગણતરી હશે, કેટલા લોકો પોપ્યુલેશનના કારણે વધતા હશે, રાઈટ? અને હજુ પણ આ એક સ્ટ્રોંગેસ્ટ ફેક્ટર છે ઇન્ડિયાની અંદર, રાઈટ? That is not allowing our nation to develop economically, right? That is population. That is population. By the year 1900, a second billion was added, and the 20th century, that is 2000, right? 20th century has added another 3.7 billion. બીજા 3.7 એટલે 3 crore plus again were being added by the end of the by the 20th century. That means 1999 એટલે 20th century count થઈ જાય. એટલે એ જે 1900 થી 2000 ની જે સેન્ચુરી છે એમાં બીજા 3.5, that is 3.7 billion, right, were being added. Were being like crores માં ટૂંકમાં population દર 100 વર્ષે વધવા માંડ્યું, right? The present world population is estimated around 5.7 billion. આખા વર્લ્ડનું પોપ્યુલેશન 5.7 બિલિયન કહેવામાં આવે છે. આ ડેટા ક્યારે સ્પેસિફિક ના, because there are number of birth and there are number of death happening at each point of time around the world. But એક estimate કાઢવામાં આવ્યો that the total population of this world is around 5.7 billion, right? Every 4 days the world population increases by 1 million. લાખોની તમે કાઉન્ટ કરો તો every 4 days the population is being increased by 1 million, by 1 billion. એટલે 10 લાખ 20 લાખ 50 લાખ, રાઈટ? આ જે પોપ્યુલેશન છે લેક્સમાં થતું જાય છે, રાઈટ? એ દર 4 દિવસે વર્લ્ડમાં એટલું પોપ્યુલેશન વધતું જાય છે. So you can imagine the increase of population in this world. Now what happens because of all these things? Fertility falls as income rises. Fertility, જે ઉત્પાદન કેન્દ્ર હોય ને, that means the earth where it produces everything, right? તમે વાવો તરત કંઈ મૂકે, એની કેપેસિટી ઘટતી જાય, right? કારણ કે એ રિસોર્સિસ તો લિમિટેડ છે. એ જેટલી જગ્યા છે એટલામાં જ ડેવલપ થવાનું છે. હવે એટલી જ જગ્યા પણ નંબર ઓફ યુઝર્સ વધી ગયા. હવે એ પ્લેસની અંદર સપોઝ 100 kgs ઓફ વીટ થતા હોય, રાઈટ? તો 10 જણા હશે, 10 people, right? 10 persons, so at least they can satisfy 10 kg. So everyone will be satisfied at the end of the day. But now the same place produces 100 kgs of wheat. Now there are 100 or 1000 people to eat that 100 kgs of wheat. Will it satisfy the need? It's a question mark. Right? Moving ahead. Fertility falls as income rises. Income rises, pacha paisa વધતા જાય, but productivity ઘટતી જાય. Education spreads, education વધતું જાય, and health improves, health develop થતી જાય because of technology. Thus, development is best contraceptive, but the development itself may not be possible if the present increase in the number continues. Right? Constantly, जो population factor વધતો ગયો, it would be very difficult to maintain a quiet balance between the needs and the wants. The rich gets richer and the poor begs the children, which condemns them to remain poor. Right? एक कहावत तो तुमने खबर है, the rich is getting richer and the poor gets the poor. Why? Because of the population factor. Right? We have studied in SS chapter number 17, poverty and unemployment. Right? This is the most important two factors which doesn't allow the poor people to get into the richer concept, and the rich will become more richer. This is what is happening in India also, and we can feel it, we can understand it. Why? Because of the population. More children does not mean more workers, merely more people without work. Right? Ghana loko children's asset consider kare. I used to tell the same concept, right? That the poor people who does not have the job, they consider their children as their assets. કે ભાઈ મોટા થઈને કામ કરાવવા જશે, 200-500 રૂપિયા દરરોજ લઈને આવશે, તો મારા ઘરમાં 5 છોકરા હશે તો 5 જશે તો 5 જણા 500 લઈને આવશે, so per day my income would be 2500. That is not the actual reality. More persons means more jobless people. Who guarantees them that they are going to get 500 rupees at the end of the day? Who guarantees them that they are going to get the job at the end of the day? Because they do not have the basic education and basic training skills. So how they are going to survive themselves in the market or in this world? અને આવા જ લોકોની વસ્તી વધારે વધતી જાય, એટલે અનએમ્પ્લોયમેન્ટ પણ વધારે થતું જાય, પોવર્ટી ફેક્ટર પણ વધારે થતું જાય. રાઈટ? એન્ડ ધેટ ઇઝ વાય, અને પાછી નીડ્સ અને વોન્ટ્સ તો હોય, રાઈટ? એમની બેઝિક નેસેસિટી, બેઝિક વોન્ટ્સ તો રહેવાની જ, રાઈટ? એમનું બેઝિક ફૂડ એન્ડ ઓલ ધેટ થિંગ્સ દે રિક્વાયર ધ સેમ. How the government is going to satisfy, depending on each and every nation? It is going to get difficult and difficult if this number, that is the number of population, if it is going to increase constantly. It is not suggested that human beings be treated like cattle and compulsorily sterilized, but there is no alternative to voluntary family planning, right? Without introducing an element of correction. The choice is really between control of population and perception and perpetuation of poverty. See the last line. The choice is really between the control of population and the perpetuation of poverty mentality. Unless and until we change our thinking concept, we cannot stop the population, right? Especially the people who are uneducated. એ લોકોને કોઈ જાતના સેન્સીસ હોતા નથી. The population of India is estimated to be 920 million today. This is an old data, so we have to estimate the population which is 920 million today, more than the entire population of South Africa and South America together. South Africa and South America, એનું જેટલું population છે એના કરતાં ખાલી ઇન્ડિયાનું population વધારે, right? No familiar with the condition in India would doubt that the bulk of the people would die their hungry hutments unless population control is given topmost priority. Majority of the people are living in huts, right? And they are going to die in the same condition if this concept of population is not stopped or is not controlled. For the first time in human history, we see a transgending concern. Right? For the first time in the human history, we understand a transgending concern that the humans have to think in the other way. The survival not just of the people but of the planet. આપણે તો survive કરવાનું જ છે, but જો આ જ રેટથી population વધતું ગયું તો આ planet પોતે survive નહીં કરી શકે. Right? It will become very difficult to to fulfill the needs of each and everyone living on this planet. કારણ કે આ planet ખાલી humans ની need satisfy નથી કરતું. Environment પોતે છે એની need satisfy કરે. Water level છે એની need satisfy કરે. Rains છે, sun rays છે, temperatures છે, right? Summer, winter, cold, seasons છે. આ બધું environment માં જ હોય છે. Right? અને આ બધું environment ક્યાં હોય છે? Planet where we live. Right? It will become very difficult for this planet to balance all this environment and to justify and fulfill the needs of each and every one, right? So that is why it has been said that for the first time in human history we see a transcending concern, that is the survival not just of the people but of the planet. We have begun to take a holistic view. Holistic view means overall view, right, of the very basics of our existence. The environmental problem does not necessarily signal our demise. It is our passport for the future, right? It is a warning. If we do not take care of the environment, our passport for the future will be very difficult. આપણી જે future generation તો આપણી પોતાની જે future life છે એ બહુ difficult હશે, right? So we have to concern or take care of our own environment. The emerging new world vision has ushered in the era of responsibility. It is a holistic view, an ecological view, seeing the world as an integrated whole rather than disassociated collection of parts. આખી જે પૃથ્વી છે ને એક વર્લ્ડ જ છે. The whole world is a family, right? એવું કોઈ લોકો સમજતા જ નથી. બધાને પોતાના વ્યૂ, પોતાનો એરિયા, પોતાની સોસાયટી, પોતાનું સિટી એનાથી જ મતલબ છે. તો બધા લોકો ભેગા થઈને આખું પ્લેનેટનું વિચારે ને તો પ્લેનેટ વુડ ડેફિનેટલી બી સેવ. પણ આપણે તો ઓપોઝિટ છીએ. આપણે વોર કરવામાં મજા આવે, બીજા દેશને હેરાન કરવામાં મજા આવે, and all that things, and I don't want to go into that thing again, right? It would again take a lot of time. But this is what the people are thinking, taking revenge, right? Rather than thinking that the whole world is a family and let's protect this planet and let's do something which can develop the humans as well as save the environment. આવું કોઈ જ વિચારતું નથી, right? Every nation want to be every nation want to be purely independent from their own point of view, self-sufficient. અમારે કોઈ બીજા દેશની જરૂર નથી. આ જ મેન્ટાલિટીથી હરેક દેશ પોતપોતાની રીતે ફોલો કરે. And that is what we do. We divide our own self, right? પછી એન્વાયરમેન્ટને જોવાનું તો આવે જ નહીં. Moving ahead, right? Industry has the most crucial role to play in this new era of responsibility. What a transformation would affect if more if the businessman shared the view of the chairman of DuPont, Mr. Edgar S. Woodward, who 5 years ago declared himself to be the company's chief environmental officer. He said, our continued existence as a leading manufacturer requires that we excel in environmental performance. Right? Edgar Woodward, he is the chairman of DuPont. That means he analysis karta hoy ne environmental na, the chief environmental officer. The name is Edgar S. Woodward. He said that, and he businessman હતો અને એ chairman બની ગયો DuPont નો. That means he became, DuPont is a kind of an analysis, DuPont analysis, right? તો એ જે analysis કરેલું environment નું, so he became the chairman of the chief environmental officer, and his words were that as a leading manufacturer, હું પોતે જો businessman તરીકે વાત કરું, we require excellence, that is good performance in the environmental level or in the environmental performance. Of all the statements made by Margaret Thatcher during the years of her prime ministership, none has passed so decisively into the current coin of English usage as her felicitous words. What did Margaret Thatcher during the years of her prime ministership, right? None has passed so decisively into the current coin of English usage as her words were, no generation has a free hold on this earth. No generation, small child, teenager, a mature person or an aged person. No person or no generation has a free hold. આ પૃથ્વી ઉપર કોઈ કંઈ પકડી રાખવાનું છે નહીં. If you are going there, you are definitely going to die. When you came in this world, you came with nothing, and when you are going into this world, that is out of this world, when you die, you are taking nothing with you, right? So she says that no generation has a free hold on this earth. All we have is a life tenancy with a few of repairing leaves. ઘણું બધું રિપેર કરવાનું છે આ પ્લેનેટને બચાવવા માટે, right? In the words of Mr. Lester Brown, we have not inherited this earth from our forefathers, right? But we have borrowed it for our children. Forefathers થી લીધેલી નથી, right? We have not inherited this earth from our forefathers. We have borrowed it, right? લીધેલી નથી, borrow કરેલી છે. From our forefathers for our children, that is for the next generation. આપણા forefathers આપણા માટે મૂકીને જતા રહ્યો, જગ્યા, જમીન, planet જે કયો. Now it becomes our responsibility to save this planet so that the next generation can live peacefully on this planet, right? So we need to think in a different way, saving the environment, saving the environment. It's a social kind of a thing that everyone has to understand mutually, right? If we are all together, we can save this planet definitely. So here we are finishing your chapter number 5. If you have any doubts or any questions that you don't understand, you can ask.